Good afternoon and welcome, ladies and gents, to episode 3 of Breaking Kayfabe. Yep, it is out of order. Episode 4 did come out a couple of weeks ago, and this is episode 3. You won't see Halbert again. He is unfortunately not able to join us, but we do have a young man with a very interesting face. Sargon, why is your face so
Hello.
still, my friend?
Oh, my face is always still. It's because I don't own one of those webcam technologies.
Yeah, I mean, who would have thought these days people don't own webcams? Had one, then he bought a proper computer for the first time in his life. I mean,
Yeah, although I didn't know that it doesn't come in the monitor. Like, what? What is it? It's like a 2000 rand monitor. Where's the fucking webcam?
yeah, yeah, get good, I guess, as they say. But anyway, guys, as I said, Breaking Kayfabe is a series about just giving a bit of insight into certain people in the scene. And Sargon is certainly an interesting fellow. He's the current South African statsman. That used to be a title that belonged to a person known as Knoxville. If anybody does know him, shout out to Ben there. But Sargon, let's start off. Where did you come into the picture originally with Dota? How did you get involved in Dota in South Africa as such?
I think the best way to describe that would probably be starting in 2013 and then continuing for the next like what seems like 20 years playing in pubs and getting pub stomped by randoms and just continuing that circle of pain, torture, and shame until I eventually, I think, got into the then open div ladder team, and from there it was just fun to be involved, fun to engage with it, and every subsequent couple of months from there, I've just been getting more and more involved because it's
It's
quite
interesting.
it's interesting.
So I mean, when about was the first? How can I say? When was the start of your journey into Dota 2? What year exactly?
Well, I
Because I
mean,
know you,
so
I know you're fairly new to this whole scene. I mean, I was speaking to
yeah,
you once about TI3, and you hadn't seen parts of
yeah,
TI3.
yeah. So I only started playing like around first installation of Dota like October 2013.
Sure.
So that was also first online multiplayer game of any kind.
Okay.
So
So a late
you
bloomer
can
as such.
Yeah, so you can imagine it probably took me 2 years just to figure out that, you could buy items from the shop. Um, but within 2 years, like about 2015, got into my first Open Div team and just,
Been grinding ever
naturally,
since.
yeah, 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 yeah.
All right. So I mean, you're obviously currently a support player for the Mythic side. Played for Pulse previously. Um, and if I remember correctly, you stood in for Hive. Was it? Am I
Uh,
correct? At DGC?
yeah, they needed help. They didn't have a fifth, and if no one could help them, they wouldn't have been able to go. So
All
I
right.
thought, why not? Like, I'll get to go to Rage, get to cover, the event from an article point of view and play. Like, two birds, one stone. Just didn't realize it would turn into three birds, one stone.
Yeah, of course, you did obviously end up being one of the analysts for the DGC, oh, sorry, the Masters panel at a stage. So I suppose a man of many skills. So
Uh,
yeah.
or a man of no skills.
I mean, so what like first encouraged you to become? Well, I mean, the thing is, you're obviously a player for the Mythic side. You've been a coach for, I believe it was Hive as well at a stage.
Hmm.
Um, but I think I know you best as a journalist for the most part. So how did that begin? Was that something that you studied at varsity and then just decided while you were into Dota, to get on board with that, or was it a conscious decision to um, become a journalist straight out of the gate?
Well, I guess like my formal training at university, all the way through my many postgrad years, was as a archaeologist.
Yeah.
So no journalism, no media, didn't even take English. But and I think many students will attest to this, certain disciplines make you write way too many essays, way too many, high quality, content driven articles that
Yeah.
go nowhere and are read by no one. So I feel like by the time I came out of varsity, and I knew I didn't want to be an archaeologist, at least a full-time practicing archaeologist, I had a set of skills and a love of writing. I was playing Dota, and I wasn't really doing anything else. I just left varsity. I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. Was getting the whole online media thing going on, because I freelance doing that.
Yeah.
Um, And so I was getting that all like lined up and started, but I had a lot of free time. So I figured like, hey, hell, like I again kill two birds with one stone. I could write about Dota because I really enjoy playing it and I really enjoy writing. Then the writing could also serve as a it's a database of materials I've done online.
Yeah, yeah,
So if any prospective person wanted to hire me, they could be like, oh, okay, at least you've written something somewhere. Like, yeah, it's
yeah,
about Dota, but it's still, quality. Um, and so I started it that way, and I decided, look, as a massive football fan growing up, my dad's dad, all supported Liverpool. So I figured, having that rich football background and that sports background and that journalism background, I'm reading a lot of articles week in, week out about, football, about, the analysis of games. I thought I'd take a sort of a leaf out of
yeah.
professional sports and bring that sort of journalism take. But again, I'm not a journalist. It's all fly by night, just made up. But I think it's useful. It has its space. It's not like the best, and I implore other people to please do it if they want to.
Well, I mean, like the thing is that there isn't a lot of people doing it. It's one of the problems that SA does have is that we lack these content creators, whether it be a journalist or a video editor or hell, even a video creator as such. We've
Yeah,
got a lot of, I'd say, people into casual games, but nothing into the hardcore aspects of like Dota. I mean, CS:GO now has someone like Extremes, for example, and there's a couple of others. I know Congo Kyle was doing something at a stage as well. But I mean, we do lack these people. Obviously, DGL has been there for years, but the guys have been hamstrung in the past, from what I've
yeah.
understood, that they're not allowed covering certain things. Um, and I mean, you guys obviously I think you partnered with was it Good Luck Have Fun, if I remember correctly, or was it
That's
Zombie
Zombie
Gamer?
Gamer. Yeah,
Zombie
yeah.
Gamer, yeah.
Yeah, I basically emailed Clint, who's at Zombie Gamer,
Mhm.
and I shot him an email. I was like, hey, I've written game reviews for like Lazy Gamer, so now Critical Hit. I'd done like a few little community reviews for them, so I'd started the whole ball, rolling, and
Yeah.
I shot him an idea. I was like, look, do you have anyone writing for you? He then shot me back the obvious email, like, I'd love to have people writing for me, but I have no money. I can't pay anybody because there's
Yeah.
nothing coming into the site. So I just shot him like an email back with a plan of what I wanted to do, and it just sort of got the ball rolling from there. He's really keen on the coverage. He's not so keen on it not covering all the other titles now. I think he wants someone like me in every title. That would
Yeah.
make him happy. But yeah, like you say, there's not a lot of people who are willing to put in the numerous hours writing and editing what I consider to be, decent quality articles, and then putting in the time and the research to make sure that you are up to date with the teams, you kind of know what's going on, and then you sometimes still have to deal with all of the negative feedback because people who are unwilling to do what you do are nonetheless feel that they're better equipped to do it anyway,
Yeah. I
and
mean,
that can
I
sometimes,
suppose.
yeah,
I think that is the thing is with everybody, it's very easy to criticize. It's very hard to actually do.
yeah,
Um, and I mean, I've experienced that myself. Is that anybody can tell you that you're bad at something, but as soon as they start doing it, they realize that maybe it's not as easy as I thought it was when I'm standing on the outside. So
yeah,
yeah. Um, so I mean, you've obviously you've started with Zombie Gamer. That's been a partnership that's been going quite a while now.
yeah.
And for Dota, obviously, like I said, you started in Pulse last year. You guys were, I'd say, a fairly middling team. Nothing too terrifying. You had obviously Muzzy at a stage, who is, I'd say, a fairly skilled player, if known to be disruptive at times. So I mean. You guys, I think you appeared at a couple of competitions, notably the Mall Gaming. I mean, what was that team exactly for you? Obviously, it was, like I said, a higher level than um, the ladder open div, like you were saying.
Yeah.
But what did that team represent for you? Like, were there any issues with that team as a whole in terms of playstyle rather than personnel, or do you think that had that team stuck together, you guys could have done a little bit more?
Um, I think at the time when everything went down and I decided to leave the team, we had our issues, and I don't want to go into it
Yeah,
because it's past and it's done and it's water under the bridge. But at the time, I was quite devastated about it. I did think, especially that year that we we were a quality team that if we had sorted out our problems, we could have definitely made things happen. Um, Looking back now, I don't have those same feelings.
Yeah.
I still think a lot of those players are great and you have all the time in the world for them, but it's clear that my personality didn't mesh quite so well with some of the players there, and it was probably for the best. But it was still a really big step for me. It gave me access to a lot of the Prem players who I hadn't had access to before, and then also to some of the Masters players that I hadn't had access to
Yeah.
before. Um, and just in terms of the journalism, because I was in Masters, it was very easy to cut my teeth on not in Masters, sorry, in Prem. It was
Yeah.
very easy to cut my teeth on Prem, because when I joined Zombie Gamer, I didn't cover any Masters. I made the conscious decision, like, hey, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't play in Masters. I might be, a really good writer, but I'm not going to touch Masters. I have no right to. I don't feel confident to. And so all my, the majority of those first articles in the first 6 months are on Prem first of, second of, which I felt as a Prem player, we did win, Prem one leg. I felt like no one could really argue I didn't have the right to do it. And then it just grew from there. So it was important, more important, I'd say, for me as a writer of Dota than it was as a player, but it certainly was also important as a player. Now I'm playing with Mythic. A lot of the experiences there were great and are helping us at Mythic. I feel Mythic is a much stronger team, especially in terms of potential. But yeah, I'm not saying that Pulse is now a terrible team or those players are terrible. In fact, the opposite is true.
No, I mean that's just it's interesting that you thought that like you didn't want to get involved with masters because you thought that you weren't worthy. I mean, I've seen a lot of people that would have been happy to jump into masters whether they felt they were worthy or not. I mean, I've known even international people that they'll start commenting on the top stuff, and yeah, I mean the quality of the writing might be bad, but that'll improve over time so long as you see the top level. Are you anti that? I mean, like I know for my personal opinion is that I found it very hard to sometimes watch the lower levels as an
Mm,
analyst because you can never glean great information from it, and the information that you do get from it tends to be like everybody just sort of fights. It's sort of like they say, you sort of throw 10 kittens into like a little ring, and then they fight each other out, and then the one that wins is like it's just a random kitten. That's what it sort of feels like down in the low divisions. Do you get that same opinion, or was that? I mean, what is the actual reasoning behind not looking at the Masters teams when those clearly would have been, in at least in my opinion, a better jump off point to get a handle on the whole scene?
well, okay, so I think it's multifaceted. Like, definitely, I just come from an institution where I had learned that you kind of need to work through the most basic, of information, of theorems, and
Yeah,
work up through the ranks to the more advanced, complicated stuff. So I think like ignoring the lower leagues and how the lower leagues work and how the teams work and who the teams are does a massive disservice to any of those people trying to come up, to any of those people making waves. And this is true for a lot of teams and players now,
yeah,
they have literally no idea what's happening in the divisions. And there's nothing wrong with that, but I felt like if I was legitimately going to be someone who claims to know anything about Dota 2, then I don't want to be the same as everyone else and just go, oh, fuck the lower. Not that people are doing that, but I wanted to actually understand how those divisions work, how the players work, why people are getting promoted, demoted. And I think it's really, really stood me in good stead, um, for a lot of reasons. Looking at players as they shift and move over time, noticing players go from second to first to prem. I mean, that's all valuable
yeah,
as someone who's writing about this. And again, if you're not writing about, and I think this is one of the crucial points, if you're not writing for the players, you're writing for potential spectators, for potential fans, then building, a mythology with those smaller players already. So if someone in first div is seeing that little mention in an article, he's not getting full articles because it's first div, fine.
yeah.
But people in Prem are. That builds, excitement. That builds, wanting to be involved in this
Fe-
scene.
feeds the ego as such.
Yeah, but I mean that then in turn feeds back into Masters because then they're
Yeah.
watching the Masters games, and that's how you build, a fandom, I guess.
Mm.
You build that mythology, you build that fan base. People are not going to give a shit about APG or BVD really if no one gives a shit about their team either. It's
Yeah.
very hard to care and watch every game if no one really cares about you either.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
and it's the story. It's like you
yeah,
said. You're building everybody's story. It's from day one. Who is this person? And obviously, you can always track the guy's growth over time. So this is what he was when he started, and this is what he is now. I mean, I remember seeing pictures from I think it was Dota. It was DGC 2014. The other day, I just happened to find them on my computer, and I mean, I find pictures in there of someone like Travis Castaway.
yeah.
And I mean, at the time, he had a terrible reputation as a bit of a rager in game. Skilled, but I mean, I remember like he was removed from EN because he would literally tell them in game, like, "I'm better than you guys. What are we doing?" Like, it's
Jeez.
just like,
Yeah.
and I mean, it's pure raw skill. And then the next year he arrives on what at the time was a bit of a surprise to everybody was this I think it was We Are Noob is what they originally called themselves.
Right.
That was arranged eventually picked up by White Rabbit Gaming, and I mean him getting to DGC final the next year. The BVD guys would say to us like, that kid is the next big guy, like the next big thing in the South African scene, and a year later he's the one holding the cup at the end of the year. So I think obviously it's nice for the Division 1 guys or the first division guys to get a bit of the day in the sunshine, but I think it also does give them a bit of motivation. It
Yeah.
encourages you to work towards that kind of thing.
And also,
Uh,
like the story you just described is actually a perfect example because that story is essentially um, lost, right? No one is looking for those stories. No one is telling
mm,
those stories. Like, if someone is actually covering those divisions for a long period of time, then that person can tell those stories,
yeah,
and I have a format every single week to completely rope those stories in because like now I know these players and I know these names. Whereas, you have these stories that you just gave us, and I don't know that story. How many fans out there don't know that story? And I feel like that's the gap, right?
yeah.
Uh, and that's the gap I want to fill.
Oh,
Again,
fair enough.
players to me are not important. I mean, yes, they're important because they're the players. Without them, there's no
Yeah.
point. But I kind of am not writing for them.
Oh, fair enough. I mean, so okay, so once you'd done that, obviously getting towards the end of last year, you'd then played at DGC. I mean, I know you'd coached Hive at a stage as well for a little bit, and then you'd gone to DGC, and then you appeared on the panel. I know we used you there for this might have been 2 or 3 games or a series or two.
Yeah.
Um, and then, I mean, towards the end of last year, I find out that you're going to be. Sorry, I mean, I'm trying to figure out the exact chronology here because I know towards the end of last year you started getting involved a little bit more in the analytics side of Dota, specifically with regards to statistics.
Yeah.
What encouraged that exactly? Because I mean the number of statisticians is virtually nil. I mean even at pro level, I think there's 2 or 3, and basically it's just Knoxville who's really kept it up with it now.
Um, the biggest thing is like we had that Mega 8 tournament in the very first week of December. I don't know
Yeah,
if you
yeah,
you remember that, yeah. And I was in pretty much every single game stream, right? Unless they were running 2 games at the same time.
yeah,
And I mean, 99% of the time, all people were doing were complaining about there not being stats, and there not being this, and there not being that, and as usual, you know, it's going to be complaints and then no one steps up.
yeah,
So I thought, look, I mean, I don't have the time. It's an absolute mission, but if I tried to not only collect the stats, but then also I'd have to manually insert them, right?
yeah.
Because yeah,
We obviously
then
can't pass the stats. That's
yeah,
what makes
yeah,
it so hard. Yeah,
then it might be useful to me, as in for my articles, right? For my material, it's more content, and since I'm content driven, like it was a no-brainer that it would be useful. It's just, did I have the time to keep up with it, and could I flesh out a system that was useful and worked. As you see now, it has been difficult. Like I'm missing games here and there, screenshots here and there that have
Yeah.
really dented my ability to do the full 100% of leg one. And it's not complete yet because I'm still waiting for things. So it hasn't been perfect, but the content I've gotten out has been amazing. It's upset people because people want to be at the top of lists, and when they're not, they're going to go and count all their assists and
Yeah.
send you an email and be like, I've got this many, and you have to be like, yes, but that's after your game that you did in week 9 and not
Mm.
they were only in week 8, and so yeah,
Yeah.
I primarily got into it because again, no one else would, even though everyone was complaining, and I thought I could, and it was incredibly painful, but I had some help, and yeah, it was not that bad, and it was great content. Yeah.
All right. Okay. I mean, the other thing that you've got going on at the moment, I mean, one of the many things that you seem to be juggling is obviously the new Mythic Gaming Squad. Now, I mean, they are obviously a very, very new MGO in the scene. I think they only really came together, what had it been, last year, November? I think that they would have really started getting things up and running.
Yeah, they had a teams before that, I think, and
Yeah.
they like the CS:GO team I think was doing all right. The Dota team, not so much. And then I think you're right. That sort of date, end of November. That's kind of when Kunshin, so Tim, uh, he's Nick's brother who
Yeah.
runs Mythic. He took essentially took over the Dota team, and they started hunting for players that they wanted to bring into a team that were like-minded and they thought could work together and eventually make some plays. So yeah, that's sort of the timeline. I was approached just before I left for Japan.
Yeah.
At the time, I was considering no longer playing. I was considering, giving it up. There's just too much with my ideas of stats writing. It's,
Yeah.
time-wise, it was absolutely ridiculous. But after playing with the guys a few games before I left and chatting with them and working with them, it was very hard then to say no, because they're an incredibly talented group of young men, who are very willing to work on not only their faults but your faults. So like they're willing to work with you on things that you're weak at. They're willing to have their weaknesses pointed out, and they're willing to change things that might not be positive for the benefit of the team. That's something I felt I personally lacked in teammates up until that point. So I was like, fuck it, I'm gonna do it.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, Mythic has been on a big drive this year, especially. I know that they're one of the teams that I must say has made a real concerted effort at getting social media out there, especially for their
Yeah.
players and for their teams. Which, I mean, even the big teams don't really do. If you look at BVD, maybe one or two of them will have Twitter, and they won't really be active on it. Which I think is a pity. If we want to grow esports in SA, players need to have active Twitter accounts. They need to have Facebook accounts. I know, is it Muzzy?
Yeah, Mussey's quite active. There are
Yeah,
a few
I
active
think I think
people.
it's his Facebook account that he's like. Oh, sorry, it's not Muzzy. It's Massacre, the CS:GO player.
Yeah.
Like he doesn't have a Twitter account, but he's got a
Oh, okay.
Facebook account, and he's constantly posting on there. That's the kind of thing that you need. You need people to buy in, because if you don't have your own fan base, you can't grow your own brand, and without your own brand, sponsors are not going to come looking for you. So,
Yeah.
I must say that I really am surprised, especially by Mythic. But I know that some of the bigger MGOs are now trying to get their players to buy into that sort of thing. It's just have a Twitter account. You don't need to be on it every day or every moment of every day, but to just be active can make a hell of a difference in growing the whole scene, because you
Yeah.
can see then the interactions between players, etc.
Um,
So yeah.
I think the one of the major driving forces behind Mythic has got to be its owner Nick Phased. He's UCT, I think alumni now, and
Yeah.
is in business. I think accounting. I don't know, one of those ridiculous finance degrees that
Mm.
no one cares about. But he's got he's we're very like-minded. When he first came to spoke to me, even when it wasn't about the team stuff, when we first spoke about content and our theories and ideas on what content should look like in this country,
Yeah.
a lot of his views, and a lot of what he's done this year has been that your content has to come first. Your professionalism has to come first. You can't, if you want to be taken serious as a professional organization, you can't just, I guess, be flip side, right? You need to really up your game
Yeah.
to hold everyone to that higher level, and also then to appeal to sponsors and look professional. He's done that. It's an immense amount of work because he works full time as well, I believe.
Yeah.
So that's something that I also personally like. It resonates with me because it's what I've done with articles and stats. Like, you put in the work, you have actual content, and you use that as your platform. You don't smoke and mirrors.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think we're getting towards the end now, but tell me, Sargon, what is your like aspirations for the end of this year at the very least? Because I mean, obviously, for the foreseeable future, you're probably going to be keeping going with the stats. I mean, for the most part, probably going to be playing with Mythic by the end of the year, unless they obviously do an upgrade or you want out type thing.
Yeah.
So what are you expecting for the end of this year in your professional yeah, sorry. What are your goals for the end of the year in terms of Dota 2, in the aspects of stats, in terms of playing and even the journalism?
I guess that's like the big crux of the matter, right? Like, that's the big question, because that's what I've been trying to figure out for the last few months. I'm Mythic's goal, and a goal that I believe they can achieve, and a goal that I'd like to be part of and would like to work towards, is to eventually get to DGC, wherever and whenever that might be,
Yeah.
this year, and to
Well, I mean, you,
place.
you guys have obviously qualified for that extraordinarily complicated competition that they've got going at the moment. I think you guys are in the finals, are you not? So that's automatic
No,
qualification?
we're in the upper bracket finals, and since there's only two seeds, the winner on Monday will get the first seed,
Okay.
and
So,
then
well, I
say
mean, you
I
guarantee top three at least, so
yes, so we're guaranteed top three. So we have to, I guess, lose twice to not get it, which
yeah.
is entirely possible, but it's not something we want. We're 100% working towards absolutely getting into Masters. If that happens, it would be unexpected. I mean, we worked hard, and we all obviously believe that we can beat teams, but this was not on that was not the plan, right?
Yeah.
The plan was get to Prem from the second of seed and then get to DGC and finish somewhere in the top few. Like, let's go. So to be in the top three, in this is absolutely like ridiculous, and we're really working hard. But our goal is to still, do well at DGC, top two finish. We're aiming for first. We want to beat everybody, and Mythic wants, like, undoubtedly, as all the content is saying, they want to be in Masters. So,
Yeah.
whether that happens, whatever whatever direction the wind changes to, they want to be a top MGO. So that's kind of where we're driving. As a journalist or writer, I want to keep pushing our content. I would like to expand my content. I'd like to be more, to include more DGL sort of input or
Yeah.
relationship, have them be more active with the community, maybe through my work. It's something that I sort of am trying to talk to them about, and they seem kind of interested, and it's something we might do. But obviously they're very busy. I'm very busy.
Yeah.
So, and then as a statsman, I need to work the stats for this leg, and then go from there. I don't want to drop it. I don't want to stop it. I've built the the spreadsheets and the databases so that inputting it now is straightforward. So it is there. So I won't stop. I just don't know how to use it, I guess, beyond my own content. We've tried with the casters things, and it is super useful, I think. And like you guys, a lot of you also think so. So taking a massive database to lands could be really, really great, and having actual stats in games as people are watching, I think, could be huge. But again, I don't know if South Africa, wants that, cares about that, if, people are going to put in the time and the effort and all of that, and if organizers are going to shell out for those sort of things. That's up to them, not up to me,
Oh yeah, I mean, fair enough. I know that organizers have in the past been a little bit reluctant to obviously bring on additional support staff. I would so that it's not an on-screen talent, but they are
Yeah.
certainly valuable in what they can and cannot provide. All right, so I mean, guys, that is Sargon Dota. Well, Sargon. man of many talents as it is. Sargon, do you have any shout outs or thanks that you'd like to put at the end of the
Well,
video?
I definitely have to say that you gotta give a shout out to the missus, otherwise she'll cut my head off. But definitely a shout out then to the second love, which is Adestam. He's brought me up the ranks of playing Dota 2 to be probably average now, so he's not doing a great job. But a lot of where I've come in the last, like even year and a half, 2 years is a lot of it has to do with him. So massive shout out to him, massive shout out to the boys at Mythic and anybody who loves Dota really. If you guys want to read more articles and want to get more involved, please do. I'm always just an email away.
All right. Well, guys, that was Sargon Dota. My name is Prophecy, and this was Breaking Kayfabe.
Cheers, cheers.